And welcome to our Facebook Live at 5 with Baxter Professional Services. I am Tina Baxter, the owner and founder of Baxter Professional Services and the Nurse Shark Academy. If you can see my shirt, okay, the Nurse Shark Academy. Welcome to those that are watching on both pages. Hey, I'm so excited to be here. Today is June the 15th, 2022, and we have some exciting things to talk about today. It's coming up, of course. We know that our Nurses Get Mad event is starting right after this broadcast on our Nurse Shark Academy page. So those of you that have registered, make sure that you pick up that Zoom link to come backstage with us, and we'll live stream it onto our Nurse Shark Academy page and go live into that event. So I'm excited about that as well. So there's a lot that's happening, and looking forward to being able to share that with you. So let's get started. So let's start out with our affirmations for today. Starting out with affirmation: today I look forward to what each hour brings. Today I look forward to what each new hour brings. And I have to tell you, it's been an exciting day today for me. I met some great, wonderful people and reconnected with people today, starting with the Power Up. Hello, Anderson, Madison County Chamber of Commerce. Wonderful. We had a great event this morning with the Power Up. Just being with like-minded people and business individuals, and got to meet some new people. So I want to say hello to some new friends. And then later on this afternoon, had a chance to be with WIBU and Exhibit Fair, and see old friends, and met some also new friends at that event, and I look forward to meeting with them. And then I got to have some fun with old friends and have a training class with Muncie Estates, which used to be M. Crawford Muncie. And I was there, a nurse practitioner there about six years ago. So yeah, it's great to reconnect with people, and it was fun to come over and visit in Muncie. So I do look forward to what each new hour brings, because I don't know, and it's so wonderful. Our next affirmation: I get the help I need when I need it from various sources. My support system is strong and loving. I get the help I need when I need it from various sources. My support system is strong and loving. And I have to say, I have a wonderful support system, so shout out to the fam. But I also want to say you're my support system as well. And I appreciate you tuning in every week and watching our show. Please give us feedback. If there's something you want to see more of, less of, let me know, because I want to make this a great show for you. And I always try to bring the nursing business and news to you every week. And then lastly, today's affirmation for Wednesday, June 15th is: I live each day to the fullest. I live each day to the fullest. And I have to say, I have certainly done that today. It's been a wonderful day. Have a lot of great things that are happening, so I want to mention those things at the end. So, with that, let's go ahead and move on to our news segment. Our affirmations are coming from the Louise Hay I Can Do It 2022 calendar, 365 daily affirmations. This was sent to me by a wonderful friend and mentor and coach. So I love it. I love sharing these affirmations with you each day, that I get for each day. And it's fun for me to pull them off and see what the new one is for today. So I do keep them and plan to keep them, and I think that's wonderful. So let's get on with the news, because there's a lot going on. So this came out a couple days ago on the 13th, and it's www.waytv3.com. And this is about a healthcare worker sounding alarm on understaffing. And I bring this up because I just left the facility, and they were talking about how nobody seems to want to work. It's really hard to get staff. And this is something I'm hearing all over, is that it's really hard to find workers today. And so the article says it's just a nightmare. Healthcare worker sounds alarm on Novant NHRMC overcrowding and understaffing. So I wanted to go ahead and share this to you. This is from New Hanover County. It says according to multiple healthcare workers within Novant New Hanover Regional Medical Center, overcrowding and understaffing have skyrocketed within the past 6 months. It's just a nightmare, says one source who works in the emergency department and wished to remain anonymous. Can I just say, my husband had a recent trip to the ER and waited a few hours and decided couldn't wait anymore and left. And the reason why he went to the ER is because it was after hours and the doctor wanted him to go there. Um, but can you imagine this? I had another lady that we were sitting in the ER and she had a horrible migraine and she had been there for like 2.5, almost 3 hours, and she left without being seen. But this is what we're seeing. So this is not just stories that I'm reporting, but I can also tell you that I'm coming up with these things and seeing these anecdotally. So anyway, back to the story. It says last week, Novant NHRMC sent out a message using quote mass casualty event protocol to bring in extra staff and address overcrowding. The source said, I guess they expected us to all drop everything and come in because they are an NCI mass casualty, which I felt is completely manipulative. There was no mass casualty event, which Novin acknowledged in a statement later on, saying it's part of a surge protocol, but some healthcare workers disagree with the implementation. Quote, it's kind of like the boy who cried wolf or something like that. If something were to actually happen, are people going to take it seriously now? According to the emergency department employee, the pandemic pushed more nurses into travel nursing, working on contracts that would often get paid 3 to 5 times more for doing so. When Novant cut some of those travel nurse contracts and lowered their pay, the employee said that it left the hospital understaffed to the point where ER nurses are responsible for around 7 patients at a time instead of their usual 4. The anonymous employee says ER wait times have gone from around 2 hours to between 6 and 14 hours. And again, I'm telling you that this is happening across the country. The source says we're holding 40 to 70 people just waiting on beds upstairs for days at a time, just in the emergency department. On top of patient safety, the employee worries about their well-being. Early this year, a patient with mental health issues attacked 2 healthcare workers after he was left sitting in an overflow room because of overcrowding. One employee had to be intubated with injuries so severe that the patient is charged with 2 counts of attempted first-degree murder. And then on the next day, the source, remember, we come in and all the psych patients are still in their normal spots. Nothing really changed. Though the employee loves helping others, they're worried for their safety and their patients' safety. And again, we've just covered last week, a nurse got attacked. A doctor and 2 nurses got attacked by a psych patient. Someone came in and shot his surgeon. I mean, so these are real concerns out here. This isn't people making this stuff up. This stuff happens. There are concerns. And so the article says they reached out to Novant Health multiple times in the last week, sent them several questions. Instead of sitting down for an interview, this is their response. Okay. When our emergency departments are experiencing high volume, we have tools to ensure we prioritize patient care. Calling in additional staff when we get busy is one of those tools. We understand the wording of last week's internal message caused some concerns. Our mass casualty protocol includes steps to take down to the messaging, which starts facility alert, mass casualty, and then includes details on the nature of the event. On June 6th, there was not a single precipitating event, which is why the initial message explained that the alert was due to surge capacity. As the region's trauma center and comprehensive stroke center, we can quickly get an influx of high acuity patients. This is what occurred on June 6th, and it happened on top of already busy volumes. People will never be denied care. Emergency department wait times vary depending on the number of people who are seeking care at any given time. Based on one study, 30% of patients go to the emergency room for non-emergent care. That is why we continue to ask people to go to their primary care physician or urgent care when possible. Clinicians are assigned patients based on the severity of patients in the emergency room department, which varies. We know that the workplace violence in healthcare is a significant issue nationally, and we are certainly not immune. At Novant Health, we have strong systems in place to prevent and respond to verbal and physical abuse of our team members, including a robust workplace violence committee dedicated to implementing best industry practices in education, prevention, and response to acts of violence on our campus. The national nursing shortage existed prior to the pandemic, and we have long had plans in place to manage different scenarios that could impact our staffing levels. Plans include float pools and other strategies that are not reliant on the contract labor needed during the height of the pandemic. We are proactively working to address this shortage with programs centered on internal advancement, professional development, external recruitment, and competitive incentives. It's important for our community to know that we have the continued ability to care for them, and that should they seek care when they need it at the appropriate settings, including urgent care or primary care provider for non-emergent needs. We are continually working with our team members to identify opportunities to improve how we are providing care, and our plans are built with their input and ideas. We appreciate everything our team members are doing to support our patients and community. So that is their official response. They also give some clinical staff retention goals that they have. Um, that they're doing, like creating a nurse registry, giving them an upward mobility RN scholarship. So for those that are wanting to become RN, so they're trying some things. Um, but yeah, it does kind of seem like it was a poor response. And the next time they call, maybe the staff might be not quite as eager to go. I know that's a tough situation for the hospital to be in, a tough situation for the staff. So we have to look at those things. So again, we've been talking about um, the shortages everywhere, and that brings up our next story, which talks about nursing homes and how they're getting paid. So CMS reportedly exploring nursing home Medicaid spending requirement tied to patient care. This is again from Skilled Nursing News. It says the federal government could soon require nursing homes across the country to spend most of their Medicaid payments on direct patient care, according to a Kaiser Health News report. While not formally proposed yet, the Biden administration strategy would limit the amount of Medicaid's dollars used on operations, maintenance, and capital improvements, or consider profits. You know, can I just say, um, looking at some of the facilities that we have, the nursing homes that we have in Indiana, I think that they do need some capital improvements. I mean, I've been in some buildings where the Wi-Fi is so bad you have to, move around with your laptop to try to do any charting. I've been in buildings like that, particularly in our rural areas. So I don't want to penalize some of our smaller facilities that will need those improvements, because technology is coming and they're mandating them use all this technology, but they haven't kept up with it. And so with the infrastructure, so there has to be some give and take, and the residents too deserve having a habitable living environment. So that's the other thing is, improvements are often good, but we'll see. So it says if the measure is in fact enacted, this will be the first time the federal government will have had a say on where nursing homes should spend their federal funding, according to the article. So Daniel Desai, Deputy Administrator and Director for the Center for Medicaid and CHIP Services, told KHN that, quote, we wanted to make sure that the dollars get to direct care workforce to ensure high quality care. The Affordable Care Act's medical loss ratio provision already requires insurance companies to pay at least 80% of premiums to beneficiary medical care and 20% max on administrative costs, executive salaries, advertising, and profits. CMS in April requested stakeholders submit their thoughts on the potential spending mandate as part of the proposed payment rule for next year. CMS officials also foreshadowed the possibility of a Medicaid requirement at a nursing home roundtable in April hosted by the agency in Chicago. State officials, nursing home workers, residents, and their families participated in discussions with CMS Administrator Chiquita Brooks LaSure and CMS Principal Deputy Administrator and COO Jonathan Bloom, along with Tasai. During the roundtable discussion, Society told reporters at the event, including SNN, that's Skilled Nursing News, the CMS was, quote, contemplating and eager for discussion on how we might create either transparency or standards for a minimum amount of reimbursement to actually flow to direct care workers versus all sorts of other things. So this is something we'll keep an eye on as this develops. There's already been some lawsuits filed, particularly in New York and other places that are requiring nursing homes to spend at least 75% of their care, like the state of Massachusetts. So we're going to keep an eye on the story and see how this all plays out. All right, so let's look at the state of Minnesota. This is something that came out that I guess was shocking to a variety of people. This was published on the 14th from JD Supra is where I found this story, and it says Minnesota shock verdict, 100 million medical malpractice jury verdict, 111 million. Wow. So on May 17, 2022, the THAPA versus St. Cloud Orthopedic Associates, a federal jury awarded a landmark 111 million in damages to a patient due to St. Cloud Orthopedic Associates' alleged failure to diagnose and appropriately treat compartment syndrome. This is Minnesota's largest medical malpractice verdict to date, and it is feared by many to make Minnesota a member of the undesired, quote, shock verdict club. The prior high Minnesota medical practice verdicts range from 20 to 28 million. In THAPA, the 17-year-old plaintiff presented to St. Cloud Hospital with a leg injury after being side-tackled during an indoor soccer game. The plaintiff was treated by an SCO-employed orthopedic surgeon. Following surgery, the plaintiff developed acute compartment syndrome. The plaintiff alleged that SCO, through its employed providers, was negligent in its care by allegedly failing to diagnose and treat the plaintiff's acute compartment syndrome. The jury ultimately found for the plaintiff, awarding approximately $500,000 for past medical expenses, $800,000 for future medical expenses, $10 million for past pain and suffering, and notably there was no claim for loss. So here's lost wages, I think. Here's what I want to say about this. When you're looking at a medical case, you have to think about not just the injury that occurred at that time, but subsequently. This is a 17-year-old, so subsequently, what about going forward? And this is a person that played sports, and maybe they're not able to play sports. I don't know the facts of the case, but now this is having them look at these cases where hospitals have hired independent contractors, and so now a patient may hold hospital's independent contractors by showing the hospital held itself out as the provider, and the patient looked to the hospital to provide care. And that's been going through the Supreme Court. So those are some other cases that have come up. It says in THAPA, the plaintiff originally brought suit against both SCO and St. Cloud Hospital under Popovich theory of apparent authority. The plaintiff dismissed the claim against St. Cloud Hospital shortly before trial, but it was dismissed, quote, without prejudice. As a result, the plaintiff could still look to St. Cloud Hospital in an effort to recover the full $111 million verdict. The THAPA case stands to have a significant impact on providers. We are anticipating seeing an increase in medical malpractice claims simply due to the staggering verdict, as well as a rise in insurance premiums as insurers struggle to evaluate their risk exposure. It is also likely to test the Popovich theory of apparent authority and further influence contractual arrangements and business collaborations between hospitals and independent physician groups. While we expect the verdict in THAPA to be appealed or possibly settled, providers should not wait to take action and should therefore take the following steps to assess and mitigate exposure, which include review your insurance coverage and policies, consider whether independent contractors, credentialed medical staff members, and other third parties should be required to increase their insurance coverage, analyze and evaluate contractual indemnification obligations, and for hospitals and physician groups collaborations, ensure that there is clear information about who employs each provider. So that's the information that was provided there. So I thought that was a very interesting that we're seeing these cases go forward, and then the implications from the case that went before the Supreme Court. So this comes out of The state of Minnesota again. This says MDH takes control of Pine Island nursing home to ensure its patients, resident safety. So the Minnesota Department of Health assumed control of Pine Haven Care Center in Pine Island on Saturday due to concerns that the growing list of unpaid bills threatened critical services for residents. So again, remember we reported on Pine Haven previously. And so now the Ramsey County Court granted the temporary order Friday, June 10th, that allows regulators to protect residents' safety and ensure continued care at the facility while operations and management issues are addressed. MDH arranged for Pathway Health, a professional management organization, to serve as the facility's managing agent during the receivership. Residents and staff were informed of the change over the weekend. MDH acted after staff found evidence that the facility's growing list of unpaid bills and inability to meet payroll threatened staffing levels, critical services, and medications for residents. MDH and the temporary management team will stabilize the facility's operations to support staff and to ensure the patients receive quality care. The facility has 52 residents and is licensed for 70 beds. This is a rare step, is one we don't take lightly, but evidence indicated a need for immediate action to ensure that residents are safe and continue to receive essential services, said Minnesota Commissioner of Health Jan Malcolm. So I brought this up because of the staffing issues, reimbursement issues, all these things that are happening. It's creating a perfect storm for some of these buildings, and it's important to know that, you know, not all nursing homes are bad actors. Some are really trying hard and they don't have the resources that they need. And so it sounds like this particular company is in need of some additional help. And so the state is stepping in. So I'm reporting on these stories because I want you to see the healthcare environment that we are in. Again, like I said, I just talked to facilities today and they're always looking for more staff. So this is another one that's coming out of ABC Action News that I picked up. This is national news. It says nurses ask for policy changes amid shortage, say money for education isn't enough. So out of Tampa, Florida, it says the rate that nurses are leaving is tremendous, said registered nurse Lisa Gimeris. There are not enough nurses right now to meet the demand, said Justin Senior, CEO of the Safety Net Hospital Alliance of Florida. Before the pandemic, there was a nursing shortage, but over the past 2 years, it's reached critical levels. It's making our environment very unsafe and burning us out, says Grimaris. Industry experts predict that the shortage will be dire in a few years. Grimaris says it's an obvious broke system. Yes, it is. We've been reporting about it for months now. It really is, because why do we have such high turnover? Why are people leaving the field? Why do we need more nurses the way we need them now more than ever? Last month, thousands of nurses marched across the country demanding change. Since then, Governor Ron DeSantis announced $125 million would be dedicated to nursing education. Every bit helps. What this creates is the potential is for over time. I think the state colleges are going to gear up their offerings, and state universities are going to gear up their offerings in terms of nursing students, said Senior. Emily Bloom, organizer of the Florida Nurse Coalition, said, I think it's very important in a shortage to really invest in our future. Nurses told ABC Action News that this funding is just the first step, especially because it takes time to go through school. It takes at least 2 years, depending on the type of nursing, 2 years, 4 years, or even more to develop these nurses, said Senior. How many nurses are we going to lose in that process, said Grimaris. In the meantime, nurses want more and are asking for policy changes with a focus on retaining nurses. They're leaving within the first 3 years of their careers because of the burnout, because of the difficulties we're seeing, said Grimaris. The 3 big changes they'd like to see are set patient-to-nurse ratios, fair and realistic wages, and protecting them from violence against healthcare workers. Bloom says if we're not fixing the environment at the bedside that is causing the nurses to leave, then investing in our future is kind of a waste. And again, it's, providing the money for education is wonderful and great to shore up the shortage, but if you don't fix the system in which these nurses are going into, within 2 to 3 years in their profession, they're going to leave. And you're going to have a vicious cycle of investing more money into education only to have the staff that you train to leave and do other things. And so, again, I think we need to look at how we pay nurses, how nursing services are billed, and how our work environments are. And I got to tell you, I've seen some things. It's great that you have a sign that says no one should bring guns to the facility. And it's wonderful you have a sign that says, don't verbally abuse your staff. I see this all over the hospitals when I go into the hospital. But do you create the environment in which those things can happen? And that's what I'm talking about. So this is what we need to look at. So that brings us up to another state here. So Palomar health nurses, caregivers plan a strike. This is in California. So it says registered nurses and caregivers at Palomar Health in Escondido and Poway, California, plan to strike on June 23rd, according to the unions that represent them. The California Nurses Association, affiliation of the National Nurses United, represents about 1,300 registered nurses at Palomar Health hospitals. The Caregivers and Healthcare Employees Union, an affiliate of CNA, represents about 1,700 ancillary caregivers. Members of the union announced they had issued a strike notice on June 13th, days after voting on June 7th and 8th to authorize a walkout. Although negotiations have been ongoing for more than a year, Palomar Health has refused to bargain in good faith and failed to adequately address workers' concerns the unions contend. They ignored our demands to make improvements for safe patient care. We can't provide the best care without a strong union contract that protects us and our patients and attracts and retains excellent nurses and caregivers. After all that we have sacrificed during the height of the pandemic, we are disappointed by Palomar's treatment of nurses and caregivers. Home health RN Glenn Cascolin said in a news release. In a statement shared with Becker's earlier this month, which is where this comes from, Becker's Hospital Review, by the way, Palomar Health Chief Human Resources Officer Jeff Washburn said Palomar Health, quote, continues and remains consistent in our efforts to have further conversations to resolve this union contract in a way that is mutually beneficial for all parties. So their strike is due to begin at 7 a.m. Pacific time on June 23rd and run through 6:59 a.m. Pacific time on June 24th. So we'll see what happens in this story and with this strike. So that brings us back to the issue of travel nurses, and came from an article that I found. It says travel nurses gig work exposes hospital employers to legal risk. It says gig nursing opportunities are growing as hospitals turn to outside companies to fill staffing gaps, but the practice carries legal and regulatory risks for both sides. The gig model that relies on independent contractors is more complicated in the highly regulated healthcare industry than for rideshare and food delivery. The trend could leave facilities and companies serving them vulnerable to misclassification accusations, joint employer disputes, and complicated wage and hour laws, attorneys and others in the industry say. Healthcare facilities face complex licensing and certification requirements. As pandemic-era flexibilities that allow travel nurses to easily move from state to state expire, staffing companies will have an even harder time navigating the regulations. Given the already serious issues with many of these healthcare workers feeling overwhelmed and underpaid, they're going to turn these questions not just to the individual hospitals, but potentially also to the companies that are hosting these platforms, said Sonia Rosenberg, a labor and employment partner at Neil Gerber Eisenberg. The COVID-19 pandemic exacerbated the burgeoning shortage of healthcare workers of all kinds. Job openings in the industry are more than double what they were a decade ago, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. About a third of healthcare workers have quit or lost their jobs since February 2020, according to a Morning Consult poll. So again, we're seeing some things that with the travel nurses, things are changing. We're going back to pre-pandemic rules. So it says, for example, wage and hour laws are different in every state, so the apps need to ensure that they stay up to date with requirements related to how they pay workers. Each hospital could track time, provide meals and breaks, and schedule in a different way. Making sure hospitals and apps are providing the person the right amount of pay based on what they're entitled to can be very complicated. If the wages and hour laws aren't followed, it can result in immense liability. In addition, hospitals, group practices, and other facilities should read contracts closely to determine which entity is liable if a gig nurse sues a healthcare facility and a staffing agency. So all of these questions are coming up, the gig workers with the nurses. So this is, again, something we need to think about, and this is one of the reasons why um, I have services that I do and offer, because everybody needs to have those contracts reviewed. So let's go back to another story. Yeah. So I wanted to share this story. I found this interesting. This is coming from the state of Maine from Yahoo News. And it says Maine Med videographer wins regional Emmy award for COVID film. So a videographer from Maine Health has won an Emmy award for his film that captures the anxiety and fatigue of Maine Medical Center nurses treating unvaccinated COVID-19 patients in the Portland Hospital's intensive care unit last summer. During the 2-minute, 20-second video, Charlie Bing interviews nurses as they begin their day in the hospital's COVID unit. The video was filmed on a day in late August 2021 during a time when the Maine health when the pandemic was high. The video was posted in hopes that it would encourage more people to get vaccinated against the virus, as hospitals in Maine and across the nation were getting overwhelmed with extremely ill and vaccinated patients. Clips of the video are also shown on the Today Show and ABC World News. And so congratulations to Berg and the 4 ICU nurses that he interviewed. And he got an award for this. So I think it was great. He says, oh, this is what a COVID patient says. Well, let me go back to the story. It says, nurses cry, say patients tell them they regret not getting vaccinated, talk about putting patients in body bags. And in one segment, a man from South Portland laments not getting vaccinated while urging others to get their shot. The man says, I was a little skeptical about things. Skeptical. It's hard for me to say, about things. There is so much information you don't know what to believe, and that's true. There's a lot of misinformation out there. Now I certainly believe it. You never want to get this disease. It's the worst feeling you could ever have. And so congratulations to them on receiving that award. So this brings up my next story about innovation in nursing. And this is again also from Yahoo Finance, and it says VSIM supports nursing students with first ever advanced medical surgical critical care virtual training. This is coming out of Waltham, Massachusetts. It says to prepare the next generation of nurses for the challenges of real world practice and help address lack of simulation content for advanced medical surgical and critical care scenarios. Walters Kluwer Health and Lairdale Medical launched VSIM for Nursing Advanced Medical Surgical Critical Nursing, the latest course area from the VSIM for Nursing. It was co-developed with Lairdale Medical and Walters Kluwer. It provides realistic evidence-based scenarios written by the National League for Nursing with built-in point-of-care solutions for reference and remediation. The VSIM Nursing Advanced Medical Surgical Critical Care course offers students needed exposure to a wide variety of populations, themes, and environments, such as representation of non-binary patients. Students experience caring for patients with comorbidities, including obesity and a secondary COVID-19 diagnosis. Students also learn about transmission-based safety precautions through an interactive minigame. By focusing on challenging cases, the new course depicts complex clinical situations in a safe, highly realistic clinical environment and empowers nursing students to hone their clinical judgment skills. So I wanted to highlight this as a way of showing innovation in nursing and what we're having to do and things that we've learned coming out of the pandemic. All right, so that ends our news segment, and we're going to get ready for our event this evening. It's our Nurses Get Mad event. I'm excited about that, where we're going to talk about building my audacious dream, and that's what we're going to talk about today, and I'm excited about that. So that starts just at 6 o'clock. We'll be live streaming it onto our Nurse Shark Academy Facebook page. And then the replays will be posted into the group for this challenge, and that the replays will be available for about a month or so, and then I'll take them down. But I'm very excited about this. I'm ready to go. Been thinking about this, but I want us to start building our dreams as nurses. And I just want to say, just because maybe you're burnt out right now and you're thinking you need to do something different as a nurse in your career. I want to say leave your job, not your profession. And maybe it's not the right environment for you right now, but there's so many different things that you can do with your nursing degree. I was just in a Facebook group talking about this today. So many were saying, do you keep your, when you retire or when you decide to leave the profession, you keep your nursing license, do you let it lapse? I would say keep it. Unless you are 100% sure you're never going to go back to work, keep it. You worked hard for that. And we're going to talk about ways during this challenge of you using your nursing license to build a career as a successful business owner without leaving nursing. You can still do that and have a wonderful business for yourself. So we'll be talking about that and building those big audacious dreams in our challenge starting at 6 o'clock Eastern. So looking forward to seeing you on our Nurse Shark Academy page. And those of you that have registered, don't forget to get to the Zoom information to join us. So looking forward to that as well. So have a great day.